They say the dead don't speak, but what if they do, and we're just too afraid to listen? I've heard them, heard him, and now I can't stop wondering if staying silent about what happened that night was the biggest mistake of my life. It's been exactly 37 days since my partner vanished in Blackwater Swamp. 37 days of sleepless nights, of jumping at shadows, of questioning my sanity. And now, as I sit here in my dark apartment with a bottle of bourbon that doesn't help anymore, I need to tell someone what really happened. Maybe then you'll understand why I've handed in my badge and why I can't stop staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring again. I never believed in the supernatural. I was a cop, after all, trained to deal with facts, evidence, and logic. But that night in Blackwater Swamp, that night changed everything. It started like any other humid Louisiana evening. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as I sat in my patrol car, waiting for my shift to end. My partner, Officer Miguel, had been dispatched earlier to check out some strange lights reported near Blackwater Swamp. I'd laughed when he left, teasing him about swamp ghosts and voodoo curses, stuff we'd heard growing up but never really believed. But Miguel, he was different. 2 tours in Afghanistan had left him with a sixth sense about danger, the kind that kept us both alive more times than I could count. But then the call came in. "Help! Blackwater! They're coming!" Miguel's voice crackled over the radio, barely audible through the static. My heart skipped a beat. Miguel wasn't one to scare easily. He'd been through hell and back during his time in the military before joining the force. If something had him spooked, it wasn't good. "Miguel?" I called back into the radio, but all I got was silence. Just static buzzing in my ear. I should have called for backup right then and there. Should have followed protocol. But Miguel was my brother in arms. Not by blood, but by bond. He was the godfather to my daughter, the man who'd pulled me out of the bottle after my wife's death. We had history, so I did what any partner would do. I went in after him, since I couldn't afford to leave him out there alone. I grabbed my flashlight and headed toward Blackwater Swamp. The drive to Blackwater Swamp that night was like entering another world. The humid Louisiana air pressed against my cruiser windows like a living thing, and the moss-draped cypress trees seemed to bend inward, watching my approach. The deeper I drove, the more wrong everything felt. No crickets, no frogs, not even the usual chorus of cicadas that made summer nights unbearable. Just silence, the kind that makes your ears ring with the sound of your own rushing blood. When I finally reached the clearing where Miguel had last radioed from, his patrol car sat abandoned on the side of the road, its door wide open. My stomach twisted into knots as I approached it. "Miguel?" I called out again, louder this time. Nothing. I shone my flashlight around, scanning for any sign of him. His flashlight lay discarded on the ground nearby. Something he'd never do unless he was in serious trouble. The beam of his light illuminated something that made my heart stop. Miguel's St. Christopher medal, the one his mother had given him before she passed. He never took it off. Never. While still trying to get my thought together, suddenly I saw them. The lights. Faint at first, but unmistakable, glowing orbs hovering just above the swamp's surface in the distance. They flickered like fireflies, but moved with purpose, as if they were literally watching me. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to call for backup and get out of there, but something about those lights pulled me in. Or maybe it was just desperation to find Miguel. I followed the lights deeper into the swamp, my boots sinking into the mud with every step. The air grew colder, as if something unnatural had settled over the area. The trees seemed to close in around me, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Then I saw it, a small shack standing on stilts above the murky water. It looked ancient, like it had been there for centuries and forgotten by time itself. The lights were coming from inside. My heart pounded as I approached the shack's door, a heavy wooden slab that creaked ominously when I pushed it open. Inside was worse than anything I could have imagined. The stench hit me first, rot and decay mixed with something metallic. Blood? My flashlight flickered as I scanned the room. Strange symbols were scrawled across every wall in what looked like dried blood, symbols I didn't recognize but felt deeply unsettling just looking at them. In one corner sat an old wooden chair with deep claw marks etched into its arms, as if someone had been dragged from it against their will. And then there were the whispers. At first they were faint, like wind rustling through leaves, but soon they grew louder, clearer. Voices speaking in a language I didn't understand but somehow knew wasn't meant for human ears. I turned toward their source, a small trapdoor in the floorboards at the center of the room, and froze. Something was moving beneath it. I knelt down cautiously and pulled open the trapdoor, and what lay below made my blood run cold. Beneath me was a cavernous pit filled with dark water, and floating just below its surface were bodies. Dozens of them, all staring up at me with lifeless eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, and among them was Miguel. His body floated near the edge of the pit, but his eyes, they were wide open, staring directly at me as if pleading for help. Before I could react, before I could even process what was happening, I felt something cold wrap around my ankle. A hand. No, not a hand. Something else entirely. I screamed as whatever it was began pulling me toward that watery grave below, but no matter how hard I struggled, it wouldn't let go. Just when all hope seemed lost, the grip suddenly loosened, and I scrambled back up onto solid ground, but not alone. The bodies beneath me began to rise from their watery tombs, slowly at first, but then faster, as if something had awakened them from their eternal slumber. I ran faster than I ever thought possible, but even as I fled back through those twisted trees, the whispers followed me, the lights followed me, the swamp itself seemed alive now, hungry for more souls. By some miracle, or maybe sheer adrenaline, I made it back to my patrol car without looking back, but even now, as I sit here telling this story, it haunts me, because deep down, I know Blackwater Swamp isn't done with me yet, and neither is Miguel. Weeks passed after that night, and life returned to some semblance of normalcy, or so I thought. But then one evening, while sitting alone at home, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize flashing on screen. Hesitantly, I answered, and what came next sent chills down my spine. It was Miguel's voice on the other end of that line, but not quite him. "Help," he whispered again, just like before. "Blackwater." And then nothing but static once more. I haven't told anyone about this. Not yet, anyway. Right now. I really don't know what to do after what I saw that night. I don't know if my friend is still alive in this world, or somewhere in between. The thought of going back to that swamp is killing me, though it seems like the only option to clear my doubts. Should I go back? Would you? Wait. Oh God. My phone. It's ringing again. Miguel is calling. The dead is calling. Again!